before you became Dr. Optimism? Where does it start? Tell me about that little girl who saw the movie. I read somewhere, the movie Titanic.
Oh my gosh. I didn't go to school for like 2 weeks after I saw the Titanic because it wrecked me.
Welcome to Game Recognizes Game, brought to you by AposHealth. You know, so many times in my career, people have said, hey MJ, you're just too optimistic all the time. And I'm thinking, what's the alternative? You know what? I'll take optimism. And as my team and I started exploring those seeds of greatness, the concept of optimism kept coming up, and we found the expert, the doctor of optimism. Yeah, that's a thing. Dr.Deepika Chopra, who's not only a clinically trained psychologist, now she counsels companies and people all over the world on the science of optimism. Yeah, it's evidence-based science. It's a mindset. It's a mind-body connection. It's a way of life. Game recognizes Dr. Deepika Chopra.
Welcome to Game Recognizes Game, brought to you by AposHealth. You know, in our show, we talk a lot about the seeds of greatness: community, accountability, resiliency, leadership, service. Today, we get to add just one more seed: optimism, or the science of optimism. So I went to my team and I said, who do we got for optimism? And they came back, well, Dr. Optimism. I'm like, is that a thing? And they go, MJ, that's a thing. So I started studying up about optimism. Are we born with it? Can you nurture it? Can you develop it? Guess what? Damn right we can.
What an honor it is to have Dr. Deepika Chopra with us today. She is a professional psychologist, clinically trained, educated, PhD, spent years in private practice helping patients with some of their mental health challenges. And guess what? Those protocols limited her, kind of locked her up a little bit. So she did what great ones do, change the game, and went on to build a brand around optimism. She became the doctor of optimism, and we are honored to talk about that seed of greatness. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
Good to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for coming out and being here.
Well, it's absolutely my pleasure. This topic is really so exciting to me. Every single night when I put my boys to bed, I always say one thing to get their night started. I say, always dream big. Always dream big, because dreams come true. And I have been told that, MJ, you might be a little bit too optimistic, right? But I'm like, what's the alternative, right? Before you became Dr. Optimism, where does it start? Tell me about that little girl who saw the movie. I read somewhere, the movie Titanic.
Oh my gosh. Many movies, music and movies were definitely something that moved me. I was definitely a little girl who had a lot of feelings. Highly sensitive person over here. And the Titanic was a whole another thing. I didn't go to school for like 2 weeks after I saw the Titanic because it wrecked me. But yeah, you know, I think that I was definitely raised by now what I know the definition of optimism. I was raised by optimists. I think the word and the notion of optimism is really can be misguided and actually is something that is confusing for people. And I think people look at that idea of optimism and they think that we're just talking about positivity. And whenever I am speaking to a large audience of people, I think that they're very shocked and surprised to hear someone who is the optimism doctor say that positivity is sort of like maybe the fourth or fifth word that comes to mind when I think of optimism. Optimism is so much more about resiliency and curiosity. And so, you know, my father came to this country, you know, with $8 in his pocket, and he came here by himself, and his trajectory and what I saw as a little girl in him building his life. And he really took us all in through all of the aspects. You know, I saw the hard moments. I definitely, even as a 7-year-old, I can remember seeing the blood, sweat, and tears. It wasn't they didn't shield us from things, but he also had so much hope, you know, and I think that
Despite that.
And to me, Optimism is so much more about this idea. You hit it right now. It's in spite of. It's not a world or sort of building a life without struggle. It's literally none of us are immune to struggle or setback. You know, a true optimist is someone that is keenly aware and mindful of the setbacks and the roadblocks and the less than ideal situations. You know, sorry to say it, but these things happen to us not just sometimes, but daily. And the caveat is they see these things as temporary and something that they have the ability to overcome based on all the things they have overcome in their life thus far. And so I always like to tell people that optimism, yes, it's about this idea of resiliency. It's about being curious. Like, what is this moment going to teach me? I may not love it. I don't love it. Here's how I'm feeling. And you have to sit in the authentic feeling. It's not about putting a bumper sticker on it and just saying, it's fine, because it's not fine. That's not how we build it. But optimism is really built in those moments of persevering through struggle. So you have to be aware of those things. And first and foremost, accept that those things are going to happen and be real about it. So I really talk a lot about this idea of real optimism.
You know, I laugh at people who call me or call others, oh, you're just too optimistic. You know, you always see the silver lining. I'm like, if you only knew, if you only knew what it took me to get to this feeling.
Yes.
You know, to get to this feeling like I have overcome, right? And I know everybody who might be optimistic and have that great energy to them. And who knows what they've also overcome to get to that, because it's really a pinnacle of enlightenment, of mental well-being, right?
Yes, absolutely.
You know, let's talk a little bit about resiliency and curiosity, because we've had many business leaders and they talk about resiliency, but they also talk about never stop being curious. Let's really expand on that, right? Because it's always be learning, right?
Yes.
Always be learning and keep moving forward. Learn, move forward.
Yep,
You know?
I love that. And I always share with people that one of the biggest hallmarks to me is this idea that I sort of like to call or think about, it's staying open. So a lot of things can happen in our lives that just close us off. But the difference and the distinction here is how can we live a life in spite of all these things and just commit to staying open? And that in itself is that is what will get you through. I'm a visual person. And so I always, if I had to describe in my mind when I close my eyes of what optimism looks like, I do this a lot. What does this look like to me or feel like? And to me, I'm not in this poppy field skipping, barefoot, humming a tune, saying life is blissful 24/7. I actually see myself in a fairly dark room, and I might be sitting in the corner and I might be feeling some big feelings, but I look up and I see a door and I'm curious. I don't even know if the door can be open, but I wonder what's behind the door. So that's the first step. And then maybe as I work through
fear?
things.
Before you open the door?
No, it's more of a thank goodness there's a door. I don't know what's behind it. You're right. I'm not really sure, but it is. I'm thinking and I'm hoping that something out there is better than what I'm experiencing here, and I'm curious enough to I'm curious and open that I see it. Sometimes when you're stuck, you don't see it, so you got to see it. And then maybe as you work through things, sometimes when I'm going through something and I know that I'm in the next step, I will close my eyes and I see the door is unlocked. And then I might see that there's some light behind it, or it's slightly ajar.
Peeking in.
Yeah, peeking in. Yeah. And so it's not
still
about, it's
Despite
still light.
The darkness.
Right. And I don't know what that light is going to bring. Listen, it could bring a whole host of other things, but the fact is, an optimist sits in their true, authentic emotions. It's not about being devoid of reality. It's not about being blind. It is literally being aware and knowing that the only way, through is through. Yeah. You're sitting in that authentic feeling, and oftentimes it could be mourning or grief or loss or anger. Because listen, we are meant to feel and experience the full range of human emotion. So once we get past that, you're authentically sitting in it, but at the very same time, you are leaving space for hope. So it's those two things. It's an and. It's not a just this or that. It's an and.
Yeah. And we talk about oftentimes, this too shall pass.
Yes.
Right? But if you believe it will pass,
Yes.
if you see that little light, that little door, and visualize maybe the support system, your community.
Yes.
You know, we've had so many folks, you know, we try to bridge the gaps between sports, business, entertainment, and the consistencies and the patterns and the work habits and the mindsets. And we talk about the folks on the sideline watching things, and we talk to the ones that do. And the fear of doing sometimes cripples people, you know. And I coach a lot of young kids, and my boys especially, Jack and Austin, and in Little League, and we teach them early, you know, you always miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yes.
Right? If you have 2 strikes on you in Little League, just swing. What's the worst that can happen?
I have a 7 and 4-year-old. We have a 1-year-old too, but the 2 boys, 7 and 4, my husband coaches both of them in Little League. And so we're there, you know, my older son.
I've lost all my identity, by the way.
I know.
I'm just Coach Marty now.
I know.
You're the baseball mom.
I'm getting there. I can't believe it, but I'm getting there. But I've also lost any other free time, but I love it. I actually love, I was saying the other day, I don't know, is there anything better than being a baseball mom? And I can't believe I'm saying that because I was like, this is your thing to
your
my husband.
Your friends are hearing you right now.
I know.
And my wife is also laughing when she sees this.
I do love it. I mean, there's nothing like seeing resiliency out there on the field. Like it really is with the young kids, like with my 4-year-old right now. And the way my husband is a great coach. He played in college and he's got all of this. He really teaches them this idea of believing in themselves and resiliency at such a young age. He like sprinkles that in and it's wonderful to see that on the sidelines.
You know, as a parent, let's talk about being the parent on the sideline, right? Because oftentimes you are seeing your kid fail.
Yes.
Right in front of you and you can't run and fix it.
Do you know how hard this is?
Exactly.
Especially doing what I do. I have to remind myself all the time, you know, one of the biggest things,
especially because
especially.
Right.
And I always like to say first off bat, I mean, this may sound surprising to people, but I am known as the optimism doctor. And I honestly feel like I'm really good at what I do, but I am not the most optimistic person. I'm not. Like it takes me work. Like I know where the points, you know, on the continuum of optimism where I have to actually do the work. And I'm not the most optimistic person in my like microcosm of family. So I'm just like right there with everybody else in the trenches. Like I'm not some sort of poster of optimism at all.
You might also be really academic, thinking it through and thinking so much about it.
I'm great at the science. I'm great at the statistics of it. I'm actually really good at helping other people build it. But this last few years, it's been so interesting. Like I am helping myself build it because naturally speaking, in a lot of ways, I'm not the most optimistic, but thank goodness it's a learned thing.
Yeah, you know, and talk about learning because I'm trying to instill that in not only my own boys, but any kid that I have the privilege of coaching. And I tell all the parents every time, every team I have, thank you for allowing me to teach them and giving them that optimism. And I don't call it optimism at first. I realize now, it is optimism I'm giving them because we tell them we don't care about the score.
Yeah.
We don't care about the wins and losses. Yeah, we want to win. Let's
not confuse it here.
Exactly.
Let's not get it twisted.
Let's not get crazy. Exactly. We want to win. But it's all about the effort and how you feel at the end of the game, walking off the field, walking off the court. Are you proud of your effort?
Yes.
Right? Because then that's everything, right?
You know where a good way to look at and make a difference in kids that age with sort of this building of optimism and resiliency? Well, obviously we know the number one way is modeling. We can say all the things in the world, but actually they're just looking towards who they look up to. And they're seeing how you deal with struggle and the language that you say. So the other thing that's so important, what type of language are you using around your kids? And what type of language are they using? Do they say stuff or do you say stuff like, I'm never gonna get this. This will never be, we're never gonna win. Like after the hit, like I'm never gonna be able to get this hit. Like those are the opposite. That's the kind of language we want to flip. And we don't want to use words that have that permanence. You know, we want to use a different set of language. And so teaching that to our kids is so important. And it's like a tangible way.
Right. And you can tell that kid who might be upset at his performance, like, well, you're here.
Yeah.
You're doing it.
Yeah.
A lot of kids can't do it, but you can.
Yeah.
You know, it's really, and I see the building blocks over time. You know, the effort, teaching resiliency, helping them realize, well, if I work hard, good things could happen, and I'm always prepared, and you know, I can stay positive about anything that life
Right.
can throw at me, right?
Right.
And it's fascinating, you know, particularly when we talk about children, because, you know, the concept of molding our kids to be more positive, wow, that's
Yes.
powerful.
Yeah, it truly is. And, you know, it was funny. I was watching one of the games and my 7-year-old, I heard my husband talking to him. And so I tried to reiterate it. By the way, I realized when I left that game, I needed to go home and chat GPT like baseball talk because I was not on it. I had one sister growing up. We were not, I tried to get out of running the mile.
Thank you for studying the game. Thank you.
I was like, what is the terminology of this? But I think it's important, you know, they get so upset about like, oh, I got this out or whatever. I didn't hit the ball. And you go see someone, you know, play, like you go watch a Dodgers game here and Ohtani, like just seeing like, oh, there's many times they're out and then they come back and they have this crazy hit. And so it's like reminding them that the greatest, the GOATs of all time, like, you know, and reading, and that's why I love this so much too. Like getting that insight from, you know, people that are great and considered great, but you don't get to see all their practice. You don't get to see
Here's
that
a little tip.
stuff.
I'll teach you a little something. Baseball, if you don't know this by now,
Yeah.
on your ChatGPT,
Yeah.
is considered the game of errors.
Yes, that's what my
Okay.
husband always says.
It's always a game of errors.
Right.
If you, out of 10 times at the
Yes.
plate, if you only make 3 hits out of those 10, you might go to the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
By failing
Yes.
more times than
Then-
you'll ever do something positive. And that's
So interesting.
and so painful.
Yes.
But man, it really is the truth.
But
you know,
what a amazing teaching of resiliency.
without
God, everyone
question.
should just play baseball.
I was thinking the same thing. You know, football's the other game, right? And my kids don't play football. They would have been great football players. But in football, every single position has a job, a role. And they're taught, if you just do your job,
Right.
your best of your ability, and the guy to your right and to your left, you do the same thing.
Yeah.
Every team has a chance to win. So you have an assignment
Right.
in that game.
You have a focus, you have a purpose.
Exactly. And if you achieve your purpose and your assignment, do
Right.
your job,
Right.
guess what? Collectively,
Yeah.
no better sport to teach teamwork than the
Than
game
that.
of football. You know?
Right.
And that's little tidbits for our parents out there. And please go on ChatGPT and learn and learn about. But thank you for saying, because trust me, I've had some parents come up to me like, who cares if we lose today? I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
who cares?
Yeah, I know.
We're out of the playoffs. You don't go to the district championship, and we're branded losers. Yeah, we care. Okay, let's go back to some of your education. And I was really so almost disappointed for you when I heard that you had to almost change protocols because your traditional existing mental health protocols really kind of locked you up and you couldn't do what you wanted to do.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I owe everything to my foundation. I got a master's in psychology and then a doctorate in clinical health psychology, and I did so many hours, all the hours that you need to be doing. I did a double postdoc fellowship, and I honestly would not trade.
You were a slacker?
I was, yeah. By the way, I still want to go back to school. I want to see what's next, but I'm a
Always be
lifelong
learning.
learner. I
Yeah.
love it, but I still would never change the trajectory of that. Like, I am so happy that I have that foundation. But I think what started happening in the time that I sort of got out of school and finished all those hours and was ready to sort of start my own practice and do my own thing, I think it was also a time where anybody and everybody could kind of just be like an online coach. And they were starting to see clients like all over the place. They were not held by any sort of like license or anything like that. And for us in our field, like, you can only treat people or see people in the state in which you practice in. And I was getting all these requests.
Unless you were like licensed in multiple states.
Right. Or like, what
Who's
about
gonna do that?
Right. And so I sort of took the risk, and very early on, like literally right after my fellowship, to not go that route. And I decided, I'm kind of doing things a little bit differently anyway. I'm sort of not doing traditional therapy. I called it self-worth work. And I was looking more so on
mental wellness.
Yeah, and mental wellness. And I was really honing in on what people were expecting about their futures and sort of helping them with self-limiting beliefs and how to get there and bridging together like expectation and want, all these things. And I was looking at optimism. And so I was like, I'm doing something different anyway. And I'm kind of, it doesn't fit into this. So why don't I just like go off on my own and sort of take all my foundation, but not practice in this way. So I actually do not practice as a clinical psychologist after my fellowship. That's not what I do. I am a professional psychologist, and that's the distinction. And I'm known as the optimism doctor now. That was very random and organic.
It's
and
a thing.
It's a thing. To me, it actually, only in retrospect, because it was so organic, it's my sort of example to myself, and now I will share with other people I mentor, that if you're doing something that doesn't traditionally exist, but you're doing it so it does exist, then you should do everything you possibly can to make it traditionally exist. So for me, I was kind of operating and practicing in a different, I like to think of it, innovative way, but in a different way. And there is no such thing as a path to become like an optimism doctor. There is no optimism doctor certification, nothing like that. Like, it's just that's what I do, and I'm the optimism doctor. And it came in a very random way that someone named me it. And it was basically that, as you can probably tell, I'm good at some things, and I also know what I'm not so great at, and I'm not great at being concise. And so one day I was talking with a new client, and I was explaining to him what we would be doing and why it would be different than traditional therapy and maybe some of the work he had done before. And after a long spiel of what we're doing, we're going to focus on the things that you want and the things that you're really good at. What are your skills? And we're going to do that like 80% of the time. Only 20% of the time we're really talking about the stuff that bothers you and that is not going well. And I'm going to figure out how optimistic you are in this like continuum on these various, parts of your life. And after it, he was just like, so you're basically like my doctor of optimism. You're my optimism doctor. And I was like, if I would have said I am your optimism doctor,
He would have walked out.
Well, no, I said to him, if I would have said that, would that have just erased the last 15 minutes of me trying to explain this and we could just get on with it? And he's like, yeah, that's just a way better. It's very clear to me. So people started to refer me as that. And then I said, you know what, something in my head. I said, why don't I just trademark that? Because this is my thing. And so I made it real.
I love it. And I like talking about organic. I came to you organically, but you were studying evidence-based science.
Mm-hmm.
And organically, you had an aha moment. Talk about that a little bit, because that's right. You're doing all these little nerdy science facts.
I'm still a nerd, by the way. But yeah,
me too. But you have this aha moment. Wow.
Yeah.
What in the science of optimism gave you that aha?
Yeah. I love the brain, I gotta say. And
The brain is a muscle.
The brain is a muscle.
Yeah.
Optimism's a muscle. I just love the brain so much that, by the way, that's why controversial or not, I can't let my children play football. I mean, God bless. I know it's gotten safer. Another conversation.
I'm in the business. I would have let them play, but that's another.
Yeah. See, I just need more of that. But I'm only focused on that one thing. I think the brain is our most powerful, precious. It's why I'm not very risk-taking in like very many ways in my own life with things. I'm super like, well, I know what that does to the brain, and so I'm not. It can get a little bit.
Yeah.
Good thing I have the balance of my husband. When I was in grad school, I remember, units on neuroscience, and I always lit up with that. And I love science. I always have, and I love humans. And so even though I will say I did not come to this path in any linear fashion, I mean, my past is, I worked at a punk music label. I was in investment banking. I worked in public health. It was not linear, but that's another conversation.
It could be schizophrenic too.
Yeah, it's another conversation. It makes sense to me now why it all works together. But one of the things I remember reading and then following up with that was like such a big aha moment to me is that our brains are anticipatory organs, which means everything about our brain works in future tense. And so That could be a few seconds from now, with our visual cortex, like what we see. Our brain tells us what we see faster than our visual cortex sees it. Those games where a letter might be missing, but your brain already knows what the word is, the recall. And even things with insulin, like releasing the right amount of insulin before even you eat the food.
The fight or flight syndrome.
All of it.
Yeah.
And so learning that the brain is this anticipatory organ, like really turned me on. And it started to, in the same time, this like juxtaposition, all the modalities of therapy I was learning traditionally in school and in clinical practice were like, a lot of them were past focused. And yes, we were coming to a place where there was like present. And I like that. I'm definitely more prone to cognitive behavioral techniques, and I have a lot of foundation in that, CBT. But I was like, why aren't more people talking about future and the future directed thoughts? And like, why aren't we asking people, what do you expect? Like, we're focused so much on, this idea of manifestation, and I have a love-hate relationship, but we're only because I think it's misunderstood. When we're really getting to what it is, I love it. But, we focus a lot on this idea of like, what do you want? You just visualize what you want. You like eat, breathe, sleep it. You make a vision board. And I think that's obviously a very powerful step. You should know what you want. But I think what people are missing are, what are you actually expecting to happen? Because if you don't bridge that gap between want and expectation, your brain is not going to think it's possible. And so it will not put forth the executive functioning and problem solving and solution focused part to like do the work to make your goal a reality. And so for me, I always say we don't always get what we want, but we most always get what we expect. And so my work really began to be like bridging that gap for people and getting people to think about like, yeah, sure, you could want a new relationship 10 out of 10, but you might expect it to happen like 3 out of 10. And that is like too big of a gap. And so how do we close that gap? How do I help someone come up with a real future expectation, diminishing self-limiting beliefs, and get them to really believe something's possible? Because unless you don't believe it's possible, you can't visualize it's possible. If you can't visualize it's possible, your brain is not putting forth that executive functioning. It's not working with you like it could be. And so to me, that's sort of the aha moment secret. It's what I base most all of my work on.
That's actually some beautiful concepts there. And I think to be fair to all of us, as a community, is that we have to manage expectations.
Yeah.
We have the goal.
Yeah.
And we have to be honest with what it takes to achieve that
Yes.
goal. We talk
Totally.
about, we have this ongoing conversation on greatness. And I use that word lightly, even though it's an important word in terms of our mantra here. But it's about, not everyone's going to be great, but everyone should have goals and have some ambition, get there. And sometimes to get there, you have to work through a lot of hard, right? And,
Well, I actually
and
feel
you get what you expect.
You get what you expect.
Yeah.
And I think that people will be great at something. Not everyone will be great at maybe the thing that they wish to be great at, but you are great. I truly believe that every single person, not just the 1% elite, like athletes or people in their fields that are the best of the best, the GOATs.
Yeah.
Everybody has the ability for greatness inside of them. And I think you're right. It hits a lot of stuff. It does include like, what are you willing to work for and how hard? There is that. I think a lot of people think they can just ask for something from the universe and that it should just fall into their lap. And I think that's the biggest sort of, dispelling the myth that I hate to be the bearer of a lot of times, but I like to say, it's not that I'm saying that you can't just manifest something that you really want, but there's so much more to it. And by the way, just so you know, you can do that and you will, but it takes work. And guess what? The work along the way, the hard work, the roll up the sleeves, the every inch towards the goal, like that is a huge part of the greatness. It's not the outcome.
Journey. It's the journey.
It's
man.
literally what you,
That's the juice.
It's what you build. It's almost like, I'm a visual person, but it's like the tools and like if you were playing a video game, it's like along the way, the little tokens and gems that you get along the way that you get to like have as part of your armor. That is the journey.
Yeah, that's the juice. And that's also the fundamental difference between the watchers on the sideline and the doers. The doers will fail and they get right back up, fail again, get right back up, fail again. knowing at least I'm in the arena.
Yeah.
I'm in the arena doing,
Yeah.
you know, there's a famous quote by Teddy Roosevelt about the man in the arena that I challenge everyone to learn it, memorize it, because either you're doing or you're not doing.
It's not just a shoe. It's an innovative, personalized treatment for your body, designed to relieve knee or lower back pain and get you moving better. Apos, precisely what you need.
You talked a little bit about manifestation and the concept of evidence-based manifestation, and you have some conflicts with that.
Yeah, it's I mean, I love the idea of evidence-based manifestation, and again, a lot of that is that idea of what are you expecting, and I think that's a piece that is missing. It's this key puzzle piece that's like, sure, we are all sort of taught to get to really know what you want, you know, like get to really know it, and then it'll just happen. But there's some steps that are missing there.
So let's talk a little bit about, optimism is not equal to positivity.
No, I don't think that there's
I like that. I think the fundamental difference. Please explain that.
I also just don't love, I'm not the biggest fan. Maybe I should say I'm neutral. By the way, I love helping people understand the power of neutrality. I don't love the word positivity. I'm more like as something to strive for. I don't help people strive to be more positive. I look at it like I help people strive to be more adaptive and functional, and like this idea to me of psychological adaptiveness is like very big. It is, can you pivot? And this idea that it isn't, about the rose-colored glasses or the glass, always half full, or silver linings all the time. I mean, sure, I think that's part of it along the way, coming up with a silver lining, but there's a lot more to it. And I think there's a lot of power in actually feeling not great and being accepting of that, because that's how you work through it. Yeah. And so I also, sounds kind of counterintuitive, but help people with living with and being comfortable in the discomfort. That is a skill.
A theme on the show.
Great
Get comfortable
people,
being uncomfortable.
Yes. And I know we all know, like, all the change or great things happen when you're like sitting outside of your comfort zone. And I understand the idea of that, but it is very difficult for humans to change, to withstand change, yet change is inevitable. So we're getting comfortable with that. And to be uncomfortable, to sit in discomfort. But it is a skill. And every day in our type of society, I think it becomes harder. We live in a world where we are sort of told, and also products after products come out and technology comes out to help us not be in discomfort, to make things easy. But the real key out there for people is, and you can call it going backwards, and a lot of times I think going within is sort of the key to everything. But if you can practice on a daily basis being uncomfortable, just little bits, sitting in being uncomfortable, not needing to solve everything right away, or sitting with a discomforting feeling or emotion, you are doing so much great mental fitness. Like doing that. And so again, it brings me back to when you said, as a mom sitting on the sidelines watching your kid fail, you know that they need to have that experience. But let me tell you, I am still the worst at it. The worst.
It does get a little bit easier, that I promise you. Yes, it is hard. And it's interesting about being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
When you have, a young boy or young girl in Little League, and ball is, hit to them and it goes between their legs.
Yeah.
And they know that feeling, and watching them go through that, talk about being uncomfortable, right? But they learn that, and you hope they build on that.
Hello, everyone. Exclusively for Game Recognizes Game listeners, our sponsor, I'm so proud to be in partnership with NOBULL, giving our listeners a 30% discount code for all their products that will help you achieve all your goals. Please go to nobullproject.com/game to receive your 30% discount. That's www.nobullproject.com/GAME.
right, let's talk a little bit about social media and the concept of toxic positivity. And what does that mean?
To me, toxic positivity, which by the way can be, something that you are observing, or it can or happening to you by someone else, or it can literally, and most of the time, be something you are doing to yourself. And I want to caveat that with, I think that most of the time, toxic positivity comes from a really good place, a good intention. I think, again, it really is rooted, which is a great segue, and maybe you did that on purpose because that's like right on. I think it really comes, you're great. I think it comes from not wanting to be uncomfortable. And so, this brings up sort of, you're sitting with a friend or someone you care about, and they are going through something uncomfortable visibly, emotionally. You can feel it. They're talking to you. And I think a lot of times in good intention, a lot of us as humans, we want to just make them feel better. And so we might say something like, don't cry, it'll be okay. Or like, it's not that big of a deal. Or like, come on, like just
move on.
Yeah. The one phrase that just really upsets me when it's used incorrectly, I mean, there can be a historical use or a cultural use of this phrase, good vibes only. From like the evil eye and that stuff's okay with me. But when people say good vibes only, like no negativity allowed here, that bothers me because the root of toxic positivity is basically saying that no emotional state other than happiness, bliss, and joy are allowed here. And the whole part of being a human is that, again, we are meant to experience the full range of human emotion. And so worry, stress, anxiety, anger, fear, all of these things are normal human emotions. It's just how we navigate through them and how they are impacting our life on the day to day, how chronic they are, how much, they are infiltrating us. But to say that like, those kind of feelings are not welcome is very toxic. And I think that it brings me back to, doing all this work. And even with kids, most of the time when someone's sitting across from you or even yourself, and they are looking for help, or you think they're looking for help, but they are sharing something with you that's vulnerable. They're not actually looking for you to fix it. What they're looking for is for you to listen or to just create some sort of safe space. Yeah. And to let them sort of feel their true, authentic feeling. And so... Which includes, right, all the good and all the bad. Yes, right, and so, better things to say are like, wow, this seems like this is really upsetting you. Like I can see that I can understand why that would make you cry.
And you could tell them, it sucks.
It sucks.
It really sucks.
And I think like a gentle reminder at the same time is like, listen, I think that would suck too. And like, I'm feeling this right here with you. But like, also remember that last, month ago when you were going through whatever, I was so proud of you, like how you, got through X, Y, and Z, or you make it specific. So you're holding them in their space, but you're also reminding them of their strength. And that's like a better way to do it than, just shoving something under the rug.
Yeah. We joked earlier about, I tell folks I'm allergic to negativity. Yeah. And this is different because this is very different because I think people should be allergic to negativity, right? Because it's just bad energy out there in the world. That's different. That's different, and it's a real distinction, isn't it? Yeah, that's a boundary that I feel like you're placing, which I think is huge and great. It's sort of like I don't want to participate in like the negativity around me, and I think that, by the way, comes up a lot with women. I think a lot of ways that women relate to each other is by gossiping, and there's a whole scientific research behind it. And I'm my
like,
wife and her friends gossiping.
Well, I'm like, a few years back, like before COVID, I remember I was hearing a woman speak, and she said something that kind of changed me. And she said, "I'm going to take a vow not to be around like women talking about other women. And I want to take that same vow because it does nothing for you. It makes you feel crappy. It is something that depletes your energy, or at least it does for me. That type of negativity, I'm not for. I'm allergic to that, for sure." And men don't do that as often. No, they don't. It's like interesting. Yeah, it's like a way to relate, and we should find other ways to relate that are not... And more positive. Yeah, in that realm. So now we come to a moment in our show that we love. It's called Moving the Chains, and it's brought to us by a sponsor, NOBULL, that helps their customers achieve both their physical, mental, and emotional goals with just beautiful apparel that they have.
And it's really about moving the chains is a moniker for life. In football, it's a first down, but it's a small win. You have enough small wins, you're having a good day. So let's talk about what is your non-negotiable you do every day?
Okay, don't laugh. Actually, it's okay if you laugh. This is kind of silly, but it is my non-negotiable. I started doing it a few years ago. I don't believe in long morning routines because nobody has the time for that. But I actually am someone that believes in one non-negotiable. So this is great. I do something that I call wake up and dance. I am not any sort of professional trained dancer, so don't get that idea. But I love music and I love movement, and I don't move enough in my day except for running after my kids. So the intentional place that I sort of do it is right when I wake up, and it is like a mood boosting movement of energy for me. I turn on music that I feel like listening to. It could be like, it's different every morning. Before I brush my teeth,
one song.
I turn on music and I just dance.
Okay.
Sometimes I get a whole song in, sometimes just like 10 seconds, whatever I can get. The last one which again is gonna be kind of you dance to that, but I'm a big 90s grunge person.
Love it.
So it could be anything from even like
spirit?
I can,
Little teen
yeah,
spirit
I was
in
gonna say I can dance to Nirvana.
100%.
Like anytime, any day. It is a hype up for me. It's such a weird juxtaposition, but like that grunge music hypes me up. I like all genres, but I'm a 90s girl at heart.
But Dr. Chopra, one more question. Tell us why the world needs a doctor of optimism, because I am absolutely convinced we all need much more of optimism in our life.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the common themes I see a lot with people that come to see me, and even what I struggle with, is this idea that we are not in control much of our lives. And I think that there is so much happening in the world, that there's always things happening in the world, but we are at a point where we know so much more of what's happening in the world because of technology. And then the fast pace of technology, just that's a whole nother concept. But I think that at the root of all of it, we have to, like a muscle, remember what it's like to work out and increase our hope. Because unless we know and we truly have that muscle built that something could be better than it is today, I don't believe in shielding ourselves. A lot of people say, don't watch the news. Like, I believe that knowledge is power. I don't believe in ignorance is bliss at all. So I actually want people to know what's going on.
And knowledge is flexing the brain.
It's flexing your brain.
Yeah.
But I think that, coming from my perspective, like what I think is so in need, and a lot of times in my own life as well, is really the idea of having that flexibility of hope, holding the hope, and there is science behind it. So I feel like helping people have their brains work with them, with what we know about brain chemistry, and we don't know everything yet, but we do know a lot. So I think it's the idea of instilling hope for real.
Well, we hope this conversation helped everybody's optimism number go
Yes,
up. Right?
yes.
We all need a little bit. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank
It's been a real
you.
privilege getting to know you.
I loved it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.